Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the October 21st regular meeting of the Freeport City Council. I'll declare that there is a quorum present, and we will officially call the meeting to order. Starting off, I will ask Councilman Rosso to lead us in the invocation and the Pledge of Allegiance.
Let's pray. Lord, we're so grateful to give us a chance to come together once again. We pray, Lord, you bless this meeting, bless the council, the judge, city manager, all the participants, everyone under the sound of my voice. Lord, I pray that you would help them, bless this county, bless this city, bless the state of Texas, bless the United States of America. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible. Thank you, and you may be seated. We're going to start the meeting off with audience participation. We're going to go there. Now Councilman's ready. We're going to start ladies first. Miss Melanie Oldham.
Good evening, Councilman and my Councilman Jarvis Davis. Melanie Oldham, 1206 West Broad Street here in Freeport. And as I mentioned a year ago, I took a new job working with a nonprofit, which has turned out to be a 50-hour plus a week job, and I travel a lot. But I have been watching y'all as much as I can, the city council meetings and other city meetings online. And first of all, as you know, about a year ago, City Council made me the liaison between the City Council and the MUD #1, Clinton Wong's Industrial MUD, which I've attended the majority of the meetings. And even though it's really hard to ask questions, even as the liaison at those meetings, I've asked them. And I would like to request that at the next City Council meeting that you all that I could give you a full report of what I've heard the last year, of what actually is happening out there regarding the industrial MUD, that he is again demanding that you all combine with a residential MUD. And I watched online as Mr. Matamoros and Mr. Davis asked some really good, hard questions, which were not answered even by Mr. Wong or his lawyer, who I know very well. It was almost like deja vu. I think Mr. Pearson and I and others in this room were at the River Place in 2014 when Mr. Clinton Wong stood up there and made his presentation about how he was going to have an industrial and a residential, and he was going to combine them over there on the urban renewal land. Of course, that never happened. He said that he was going to take, people don't know, but you know, it's a AE flood zone, a quarter of that land. Clear back, you know, somebody asked the question, well, Mr. Wong, how close are you to getting the VDD in the city to approve your flood management drainage plan? No answer. He is no closer probably than he was 5 to 10 years ago, for good reason, because he will not develop the entire piece of land. He wants to do it in little pieces the way he and his engineer partner want to. But anyway, I hope that you will put me on the agenda. I'd love to talk to you all about what I know, and then I know you've been talking to Mr. Wong. He's told me he's talked to each and every one of you by phone, and just to hear from other people like Mr. Pearson, who we remember what he said 10 years ago. Here we are. So also, I haven't been here. Down the road, there'll be some discussion on the TERS money, and again, just as an educated member of the public that has attended EDC meeting and TERS meetings for 13 years. I think at some point the city council, you will ask us our opinion on how to use the 600,000, whatever it is, sitting there in the TERS fund. That'll be coming up. And then the final thing is, there was very few of us that went to the historical Main Street historical visioning meetings, maybe 20, I'm guessing. And, but at both meetings, what they recommended was over and over, you've got to get with the charter committee, you've got to divide the Historical Main Street Board into 2 boards, you got to go out and get people, and I've been hearing for 6 months, well, we're going to get with Mr. Olson, we're going to figure out if we can do this, the charter review and changing that, but because of that, things are happening downtown that should not be happening, like buildings being torn down. Our ordinance have in there how if the Main Street and the separate historical board was operational, we could stop that kind of stuff until we have time to help people get grants and other funding for their buildings downtown. But I don't know why it seems like things are going so slow, and I hope, Mr. Olson, you're looking into that, because it's not just me asking those questions. And I would like an answer of why, can Chino, whoever does the charter allow us to call a special charter review and fix that so we can divide those 2 committees? Because even we paid $70K to that company, UT
Melanie,
San
my timer's
Antonio,
going off.
and we need to get our $70K worth.
Thank you, Ms. Oldham. Ms. Pam Dancy. We haven't seen you in a while. Welcome back.
Thank you. Good evening. I hope everybody's doing well, Council. Pamela Dancy, South Front Street. I just have 2 short things. I haven't seen, and it's not just me speaking, anything on the agenda or on the executive meetings about the 345K of what's going on with that. How come the turning, I'm not speaking about this one, but the attorney that's working on that, I'm not speaking about you, hasn't pulled subpoenas for the contractor's bank account or whatever. Would like to have an update on that or see it on executive session at least. And also, Mr. Petty, I don't recall, I think we were getting funds for coming into Freeport. The county is supposed to fix that, correct? Or is it state? Coming into Freeport? Or is boom, 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 boom?
Yes, that's text dot.
That's in 25, right?
Yes.
Okay, do you know when in 25? I mean, like May,
February.
June? February. Awesome, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Dancy. Ms. Jasenia Cardenas. And I apologize if I didn't pronounce that right.
My name is Jasenia, and I live in 1403, well, the 1400 block of West 10th Street. And I've been living there since 2015, and I've worked that whole time, so I didn't have an issue with the school zone. However, now I have a baby, and I used to work around the school schedule. Well, this time I want to get inside my house, and I need that driveway unblocked. So I've been having issues with cars blocking my driveway. And when I try to honk at them to tell them that I live there, they are very rude to me, and they don't let me in, and they think that I'm cutting. So I've been calling the Freeport PD, and I've been calling the BISD, and at first they were putting it between each other, and I've been calling the school, and then I finally got it worked out, and they did clear it up. And so then I came to my knowledge that the school zone is actually supposed to go down 11th Street versus Pecan Street. So they had a teacher out there redirecting traffic, and so they got it to go down 11th Street, but then you have a couple of, bad apples that try to cut, and I've seen where there's almost an accident. And I know that the Freeport PD has officers that are on patrol duty for traffic, and then other ones take the other calls. So I don't really expect an officer out there 24/7, but until this gets situated, I would like for somebody to be out there, whether it's the school, the Freeport PD talks to the school, somebody's out there and redirects traffic again, because with the week break that we had, they're down Pecan Street again. And not only do they block my driveway, I have videos where they will block the street, the intersection. So in front of the stop sign, they are blocking that lane. So in order for me to go around, I have to go onto the oncoming lane, And there is a lot of traffic around that time. So I'm just asking, and I will be back until it gets resolved. My voice will be heard. And that's
Thank you very much. Mr. Sam Reyna.
Mayor, Council, good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Sam Reyna, and I reside in 2002 North Avenue G. These photos were taken Sunday, the 13th, a week ago. Mary Waste picking up bulky and green waste and was doing the disposal manually. Mary Waste has grabbing trucks at their disposal to properly do the job. Last time I saw a grabbing truck being used in Freeport was January of 2022. Mary Waste has to provide vehicles and equipment to perform the work and render the services required by the contract, but they're not doing it, and that's a breach of contract. Bulky and green waste was being picked up from residential properties, so I would consider this a residential collection, and Section 4 of the contract states, no residential collection shall be made on Saturdays or Sundays unless contractor is directed to do so by the city. And I just found out that, yes, the city did give them permit, and I thank you all for making Mary Waste come do their job. The first photo I pulled up behind this truck and was there approximately 12 minutes. Don't know how long they've been there and how long they were there after I left. I didn't see no flaggers, no cones, no barricades. Definitely a safety violation. Section 13 of the contract. Contractors shall provide the work in accordance with applicable laws, codes, ordinances, and regulations of the state of Texas and the United States, and in compliance with OSHA and other laws that they apply to its employees. Contractors shall be responsible for instructing its employees concerning safe working habits and shall be responsible for compliance with all OSHA regulations. Maybe cones and barricades were not necessary, but a flagger was needed to direct traffic around working area. Safety is first. This photo was taken, that's my front yard. The debris had been there for so long it burned my grass. It was picked up Sunday, but it was too late. The damage had already been done. The rest of the photos show our front yard. Nicole and I have a lot of man hours invested in our yard, and it stresses me out seeing the burnt spots. Mary Waste is not doing her job, and citizens are burning their green waste in their backyards because of that. Waste management was picking up heavy trash once per week and bulk waste twice per week. Waste Connection was picking up bulky waste weekly, not every month, but weekly. Mary Waste took them almost 3 years to properly pick up bulky and green waste, and that was last Sunday, and was done on a Sunday with manual labor and the fleet of trucks. And they got a 7-year contract. Hell, Ray Charles could see what was going on. Mary Waste is supposed to be picking up bulky waste once monthly. In my area, it's every third Thursday of the month. And they do send out the trucks, but only pick up some, not all. If they use grabbing truck, they've got some, they can pick up all waste. I know they got some because they used to.
Mr. Rayner, my alarm's going off.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Get rid of the company. They're not fit for Freeport.
I believe that's all we had sign up for today. So we'll move on. The consent agenda. We have two items on the consent agenda. 2A, which is action regarding the minutes of October 7, 2024, and October 8, 2024. And 2B, approval of road closures for Dia de los Muertos procession on Friday, November 1st. That was it. Council, I will entertain a motion.
Mayor, I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
We have a motion to approve by Councilman Matamoros. Is there a second?
A second.
Second by Councilman Rosso. Council, is there any discussion needed? Hearing none, I'll call the vote. All those in favor state aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Number 3, presentations and updates. Mr. Petty.
Three of you got Missouri County veterans.
Good evening, gentlemen.
Good evening, gentlemen. Thank you for giving me the time. My name is John Hussle. My address is 612 West Mimosa in Angleton, Texas. And I'm a chairman of the Veterans Organization of Missouri County for the past going on 26 years. And I wanted to recognize the city of Freeport for entertaining our Veterans Day Parade 3 times during that 25 years. Okay? So we don't want you to think we didn't reach out. We've gone through all the towns in the county. Freeport, I was coming to do it to you, but y'all moved from the city hall over there, and I've been trying to find y'all, but I knew you would have the meetings here, so I would like to present a plaque to the city, to Laura and I think Tim Colton was the last one that helped us with the Veterans Day Parade. So we would like to present the plaque to the city and Laura for entertaining our Veterans Day Parade here in Freeport. We started off with 27,000 veterans in Missouri County. We are currently at 17,000. So it goes to show during the 25 years, we've lost 10,000 veterans in Missouri County. So I would like to present the plaque to you guys and get a photo so I could, for the records, okay?
Well, I would like to say that the pleasure is all ours.
No, thank you guys. Thank you. No, yeah, I like to keep pictures of all the councilmen in this Freeport. That way we can put it for the records. Go over here in the middle. Take a quick picture.
It don't matter, man, I'm always a small one.
Sir.
Can I get one with you next? Would you like to get in it? Got it. Thank you.
You want the records?
Now, Mr. Petty.
Yes, sir. Just a reminder, Friday night is October 24th at FMP River Place from 6 to 9 p.m. We also have the community cleanup.
Make an adjustment real quick. It's Thursday night.
Yeah, Thursday night is Friday night, October 24th. Community cleanup is November the 2nd, 8 a.m. to 12 p.m., and it'll be held at 08 Fleming at 431 West 4th Street.
Thank you, sir.
Thursday. Friday night. Friday night is Thursday.
I misunderstood it as well. Yes, Thursday is Fright Night, and near and dear to my heart, and I encourage everybody, especially the facts, to come participate and check it out. All right, 4A, let me get there. We have consideration and possible action approving resolution number 2024-2889, appointing members to the Beautification and Parks and Recreation Committee. Mr. Petty.
Yes, sir. Sorry, I'm a little squeaky tonight. The Beautification Parks and Recreation Committee has 2 vacancies due to the resignation of Mr. and Ms. Johnson. Their terms are due to expire May 31st, 2025. The appointment will fill out the remainder of the term. At the time the memo was prepared, the city had only received 1 application from Mr. Robert Dole. So councils, we're looking for y'all to approve this appointment.
Yeah, I make a motion that we appoint Mr. Doley to that position.
We have a motion by Councilman Rosso. Is there a second?
I'll second that motion.
A second by Councilman Matamoros. Is there any discussion needed? Hearing none. All those in favor state aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Agenda item 4B, consideration and possible action approving resolution number 2024-2890, authorizing a revision to the City of Freeport Policy Handbook, Chapter 5, Standards of Conduct Revision, Section 5.23, Information Resources Acceptable Use, or AUP, and Security Policy Agreement. Ms. Fisher.
Good evening, Mayor and Council.
Good evening.
This is to add Section 5.23A to the policy manual in order to comply with Senate Bill 1893 that was passed in the 88th Legislature. We are to have a policy in our policy manual that bans TikTok and other technology that the governor deems to be a security risk from all city-owned and leased devices. This policy will meet those requirements.
Council, I will entertain a motion.
Mayor, I'll make a motion to approve these revisions as presented.
We have a motion to approve by Councilman Matamoros. Is there a second?
A second.
Second by Councilman Rosso. Any questions or comments on this, gentlemen? This is banning the use of TikTok and others, as you mentioned, on
On city-owned
city-owned.
and city-leased devices only.
So if someone wants TikTok on their own time, on their own fine, that's own time, that's perfectly fine.
That is not prohibited by this policy.
Any other questions, council? Hearing none, I'll call the vote. All in favor, state aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion carries unanimously. 4C, consideration and possible action approving the proposal from IAD Architects for professional architectural and engineering services to design and produce construction contract documents for the renovation of the Pixie Heritage House. Mr. Petty.
Yes, sir. Staff had previously on 2 occasions brought to council for approval architectural and design for the renovation of the Pixie House. City Council on both occasions requested to get additional quotes. Staff had reached out to other firms and did not receive any additional quotes. Staff elected to advertise the project through an RFP in an effort to allow other firms to bid on the project. The city advertised the project on September 26th and again on October the 3rd, with a bid opening on October the 10th. The city received one proposal from IED LLC for the amount of $43,917. The proposal includes architectural design and construction, contract documents, structural engineering, and windstorm engineering and inspections. The Pixie House, as you know, has been inoperable for a number of years. The city in the past had a renovation project completed, and shortly after that time, the building started having issues regarding water infiltration in the building, which has caused damage to the windows, walls, ceilings, and floor. The city has continued to budget $375,000 to make the necessary repairs. This building in the past was heavily used as a rental venue and an additional source of revenue for the city. This building is in the downtown district, and it is important not to only to have an additional rental space for the public, but to preserve this building for the revitalization of downtown. And of course, if council approves, IED Architect will be tasked to provide the required documents for advertisement for construction. Staff will bring those proposals back to council at a later date for selection of a contractor to perform the work.
Thank you, Mr. Petty. Council, I'll entertain a motion.
Mayor, I'll make a motion to approve the proposal from IED.
We have a motion to approve by Councilman Matamoros. Is there a second? I will second it. I would assume that council would have some questions and comments on this one.
I'm sorry. You have a question?
Yeah, you say that's just to, that's not to do no work?
Correct. Yeah, they have to do the architectural design, and they have to bid the specifications to be able to bid the project out, but it includes your windstorm engineering and everything else for the project.
Do you recall, Mr. Petty, what the last time that we discussed this with IAD, what their fee was?
39,000.
39, so it's gone up 4,000.
I have some comments, Mayor.
Yes, sir.
Is Councilman Davis? All right, thank you. Yeah, I have two questions, basically. Why and who? I'm going to be very clear on that. I'm asking why we're doing this. It was $39,000 before, and it was brought to council before. And yeah, we said, yeah, take it back out to get other bids. But the real push at the time was to make sure that we don't waste $39,000, and now we're on the verge of wasting $44,000. But let me be crystal clear. I want Pixie House redeveloped, reemployed, reutilized. There have been restaurant businesses that have come through downtown who have asked to occupy that and lease it. And it was my understanding that they would be willing to do the renovation, or that there'd be some agreement on their part to help absorb those costs in exchange for a generous lease. And, you know, that's something that the EDC, I would hope they would be trying to facilitate, and I don't know that Mr. Johnson is here from the EDC to help facilitate those conversations. But I have a problem with us, as I mentioned 6 months ago when this came up, and prior, that we're looking to spend $30,000, tens of thousands of dollars. $39,000 last time, $44,000 this time. I can't imagine what cost increased to get it from 39 to 44, but simply put, you can get an engineer to get all the windstorm and all the other structural information for $2,500 bucks. Who were the guys that just demolished, Mr. Petty, the White's Cafe, or the building that the EDC owns. It was the construction company that's actually in the downtown district over off of Pine Street, or excuse me, off of 2nd Street. What is the name of that company?
The last building was Werner.
No, not Werner, but the ones on 2nd Street, down the street from City Hall, the old City Hall. They did the demolition for the EDC building. I think we have Mr. Ronnie Martin. Mr. Martin, do you remember who that construction company was? Well, I would hope that the city manager would know, or anybody in permitting, since they had to get a permit to demo it, and someone who that was. But
I know who it is, I just can't remember his name.
I can't
right off the top of my
Yeah, I
head.
tried to Google map it and I couldn't see it. But that company there could have easily demolished it, or at least assessed it, because they do remodeling. And there's a handful of other construction companies in town. And I'm just thinking, why not just pick up the phone and ask them, hey, can you give us a bid on what it would take to fix it? Because about 3.5 years ago, I did just that while I was on the EDC board, and I got an estimate of about $250,000. And I know that we have in the budget $375,000, but at no time was there ever any discussion on, let's hire somebody at $40,000 or even $20,000 or $10,000 to tell us what a general contractor will tell us for free. And so I'm hoping that we would think about why we're doing this. But the second thing I want to touch on, and I think we should basically look for a local contractor that'll do it for probably less than $5,000 and give us that same information in the hopes that they actually get that job. The second thing I want to ask is, who is doing this? And who we're asking to do this is AID Architects. And that's a very important question, because we've been down this road, what's today, October the 21st. A year and 3 days ago, it was brought up that the Covarrubias fiasco had been revealed. And I want to let everybody know that a year ago, when this Covarrubias $345,000 misuse of city funds, illegal wires, however you want to frame it, which I believe Ms. Oldham had actually asked about, or was it Ms. Dancy? I can't remember who it was. I'll have to look at my notes.
Councilman Pete, Covarrubias doesn't have anything to do with the Pixie
Correct,
House.
but AID does. And I want to mention their role in that whole transaction was, in March of that year, of last year, they were tasked with this very responsibility to go out and get general contractors to present to the city, to give bids, and give all the parameters, all the scope of work for the city. And the problem is that in that whole endeavor of theirs, it was later found out in November, mind you, this was March, we voted on it in June. Well, we voted it on June. The vote was 4-1, by the way. I was the one dissenter. But more importantly, at the time of November of last year, or October of last year, it was discovered that AID had included a letter of recommendation for one of the contractors. And I thought, well, that really messes up the whole sense of objectivity of the process. I don't think we asked for who do they recommend. Sure, they could have given a recommendation the way the staff always does, but the fact that they included a letter really pushing Covarrubias was really suspect to me back in November when this all came out. Well, what's even crazier is that in July, when that wire went out, the month of August was spent with AID Architects being a part of trying to get Covarrubias back on track. Some people say maybe part of the cover-up. But what stands here today is when Ms. Dancy asks, hey, where are we with that investigation? Well, the truth of the matter is, it's been my position then and still today that AID is part of that investigation. And I can't, in good faith, include them in any city business going forward until that's resolved and making sure that, in fact, their name is cleared of any malfeasance. And that's all I wanted to ask. Why we're doing it, it's a waste of money, and who we're doing it with, we got to ask, are those good actors? That's all I have, Mayor. Thank you.
All right. Council, any other questions or comments? I would like to.
Hold on.
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
Sorry about that.
No, go ahead.
All right. Well, I got one on one of the statements that was just made. The AI group, this group, were they involved in pricing, getting bids for that other company so we lost out on that company. Were they involved on the letter of recommendation, and then we used that company, and then we got burned?
I personally have not seen the letter of recommendation.
Okay. Well, were they involved on, like they're doing now, going out and looking for bids and contractors for us to do the job?
That's typical for all engineers and architects. They build your scope of work and then they put the RFPs
No, I'm saying.
out for the city to advertise to get the contractors in,
Yeah.
yes.
So that's why I was asking, is this the company that did the same thing? I mean, did we pay them to do that?
Yes.
Yes. We have used IAD in several projects in the past. And this, to my knowledge, or at least for the time that I've been on council, was the first incident we had with them. So as far as them doing their job, yes, they're going to look at it. They're going to create a scope of work. They're going to put it out to bid. The contractors are going to come in. If I'm not mistaken, they even vet the contractors.
Correct.
They vet the contractors, then it comes to council. And council takes it from there.
Yes, they would do the same thing they did with City Hall. They're there to design the contract documentation, the specifications. They received pay applications from contractors. They review all their submittals for review. They do all the inspections. Outside of that, they're not involved with the contractor itself.
And I will say that this is money that's been sitting in this particular fund for several years, as the Pixie House is just sitting there going to waste.
Mayor, I have a comment.
Yes, sir.
What gives me the most heartburn about the who is that letter of recommendation. But then in the month of November of last year, when AID was pointedly asked by myself, do they think Covarrubias could actually be worked with to get the work done? They said no, which runs counter to their recommendation 6 months earlier. But then I asked another question. Do you even think they could do the job? And the answer was no, which again also flies in the face of that recommendation 6 months earlier. And I would say this, that $345,000 still has not been accounted for. We still have piling on legal fees. But the last part is, yeah, that money is set aside. Thank goodness it hasn't been wasted, or for that matter, wired to another contractor that's going to run off with us while we don't have our ducks in a row. And I want us to make sure that we are working with good actors that we can trust, that have been vetted, and that then legal can make sure that the contracts are written correctly so that the city is not in a lurch out of $345,000, or in this case, $375,000. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Any other discussion, gentlemen? Hearing none, I'll call the vote. All those in favor state aye. Aye. All opposed?
Absolutely not.
Motion carries 4-1. Agenda item 4D, consideration and possible action approving resolution number 2024-2891, accepting the financing proposal from Government Capital to fund the Ameresco water meter project. Ms. Ferguson.
Good evening.
Good evening.
The city of Freeport has been gathering financing proposals to find the most desirable rates and repayment options. Council approved the contract with Ameresco on the 7th to begin the implementation of an advanced metering infrastructure system and meter replacement project. The project is guaranteed to offset the implementation costs through operational savings and revenue increases from inaccurate meters. If those guarantees are not met, Ameresco will write a check for the shortfalls or replace the failed equipment. Staff has been seeking financing approvals to cover the initial cost of installation with payment terms that would also allow the increased revenue to cover the payment. Government Capital submitted 2 proposals and Webster Bank submitted 1 proposal. Government Capital presented the most desirable option of a 15-year financing proposal for $3.5 million with an interest rate of 4.45% and annual payments of $337,856.32 that will begin 18 months from the funding date. The turnkey project cost is $3,480,210 with O&M cost savings of $93,000 a year. The capture of lost water and unaccounted for revenues due to inaccurate meters are projected to be over $305,000 in year 1. The increased revenues between O&M savings and unaccounted for revenues will cover the 15 payments as proposed by Government Capital. With the repayment terms beginning 18 months from funding, staff feel the most comfortable with the fact that the city will have seen the increased revenues before a payment is due with this financing proposal option. And we would recommend accepting the financing terms from Government Capital with the payments beginning 18 months from funding.
Thank you, Ms. Ferguson. Don't run off. There may be some questions for you.
I'm sure there will be.
Council, do I have a motion?
Mayor, I'm going to make a motion to accept the payment amount for the 15 payments of $337,856, beginning 18 months from funding, as it's been presented in our packet.
Councilman Matamoros, approve. Is there a second?
Yeah, I'll second.
We have a second by Councilman Rosso. Council, any questions or comments on this?
I have a couple of comments.
Yes, sir.
I have in my hand, you guys remember that scene in that movie Dumb and Dumber? When they spent all that money, but they had a whole bunch of Post-it notes saying IOU? I have the IOU that Ameresco is going to give us when they fall short. And the way I say that, the reason I say it that way is not to be funny, but to really make you guys think. What a blind promise. Sounds good. Throw in the undercoat. Throw in the spare tire. Throw in the free oil changes too. I ask why we're doing this. I ask who we're doing this with. And I'm asking myself here, where are we going to get this money? I keep thinking about the fact that 2 months ago, our previous CFO stood up here and said we don't have enough money, that we got to tighten our belts. And you may recall the budget was passed 4-1. I was against it because I didn't trust the numbers and I didn't trust the message. And here we are still with more information and more surprises, just adding on. 40,000 here, 44,000 there, 375 here, another 3.480210 million here and there, with a blind promise that this is going to be paid back if there's any shortage. Just might as well hold on to this IOU that I have.
Just real quick, it wasn't a blind promise. They did us. We paid them to do a study of the meters, and we also had a third party to review those numbers and guarantee those numbers. So it wasn't a blind
Well,
deal.
my contention at the last meeting, I know there was a workshop 6 months ago that I was at, and another workshop that was basically reiterating the same thing. But at the last council meeting, when we talked about moving this chess piece forward, or checkerboard piece forward, because it's not that complicated, this thing got moved forward, and no questions asked. We just keep spending the money. And I think about Amoresco, and the thing I brought up at the last council meeting was, Mr. Mayor, Mr. Petty, was why are we doing this when we don't have the money in place, but our staffing is discombobulated? I know the comment at the meeting was, no, it's not. Well, I'm glad that I have some kind of verification on what I'm saying, because I could tell you this. I have a question for Mr. Petty. Are we whole in our water department? Do we have our staff, our supervising staff, or do we have job postings out for that position currently?
Currently, yes.
Correct. Thank you. And that just makes my point, my friends. We're not ready. Our water department still is disorganized. We still need the proper leadership in that department before we move forward. But hey, I'm just the messenger. It'll go to 4-1, but I just want to make sure I always do my job as your elected official to inform the public and go on the record so that nobody can say, well, nobody said anything. I have the IOUs. It's a Dumb and Dumber agreement. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Pena. I would like to answer one of the questions, and the reason we're doing this is to make sure we get paid for the water that we distribute. Plain and simple. We pay for it, so the end user needs to as well. Council, any other questions or comments?
The Amerisco said that they were saving us money, right?
Yes, sir.
And we believed it. We believed that, well, 4 of us did. We believed that we were going to be saving money by putting these meters in, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I'm just trying to figure out where's the problem. I mean, Dumb and Dumber? Who's dumb? 4 of us are dumb, and we only got one smart guy up here? I know that sounds crazy, but I'm sorry, ma'am. I'm sorry.
Any other comments?
Yes. Sorry, Mayor.
On this agenda item?
So, we've had 2 workshops on this. I attended both of them.
And didn't learn anything.
Say it louder.
Make your vote.
We're going to have one councilman talking at a time, please. Mr. Matamoros.
I asked questions. And they were satisfied, those answers were satisfied with data, which we were given. I like to look at data.
Don't understand it.
And looking at this, I read my packet Friday when I receive it, Saturday, Sunday. I make sure I'm going over everything. And it looks like in our packet, it states first year, we're going to recover $305,000. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
For lost water and unaccounted revenues due to inaccurate meters. And then annually, in addition to the capture of that amount, we're going to save another $93,000. Correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Then, to push it over the top, Amerisco, they said the meters aren't correct. They're going to cut us a check. Is that correct, Mr. Petty?
Yes, sir.
So, upon hearing all these things, it makes it a no-brainer decision.
Yes, no brains for sure.
If we need to
I didn't hear it.
obtain more income, maybe we can get taxes that aren't paid.
Mayor,
That's all, Mayor.
Thank you.
Mayor, I have one last comment on the staffing that I think I'd like to have answered by staff.
Okay?
As I mentioned in the last meeting, the problem was not all of the meters, but 25%, maybe 25%, was probably closer to 10%. And the question I have here tonight is really on that same point. Who is enforcing these contracts? Who is watching what the left hand is doing? And when we don't have the staff in place that we know, that we haven't even hired, so we don't even know how competent they're going to be until they get into the seats in the halls of City Hall. But now we're just going to trust this third-party contractor because they put it in their contract. Well, there was a lot of things in that Covarrubias contract too. And the fact is that nobody was keeping track of stuff. So I'm wondering, who's going to keep track of this? That's all I have. Who's going to be doing that? I hope everybody asks the same question. Thank you.
All right. Council, I'm going to call the vote. All those in favor state aye. Aye. All opposed?
Nay.
Motion carries 4-1.
Thank y'all.
Thank you very much. Ladies,
Mayor, I'd like to make another motion, actually, if I could, to pull the discussion on the EDC Board of Adjustments discussion out into open session, because I'm curious as to why an open meetings discussion would be put in executive session when that's illegal. And I'm curious why Olson and Olson approved that. And if I could get an answer, why Olson and Olson is advising that we put what's legally supposed to be an open session in executive session.
Well, I can give you legal advice about that in executive session.
Well, all I know is that I don't want us to be discussing in an executive session like we did in the past about this very topic that was actually illegal when we're talking about somebody who is both handicapped and a minority in executive session, and it wasn't even on the executive session agenda. And that's what I'm concerned, that we're hiding potential legal liability in executive session, trying to hide how we're treating our residents. That's why I'm very concerned. And if it turns out that some malfeasance is going on about it, I'll be reporting it to the bar. Thank you. Again, so my motion is to move it out into open session, Mayor.
is there a second on that motion? Understand, gentlemen, that legal's advice is it needs to be in executive session.
Yeah, and I'm going to give y'all legal advice about this issue in executive session. You'll come back out, and if you want to discuss it, you can.
Just remember, though, we got burned on that legal advice when we were discussing it in executive session. We should not have been, because it wasn't on the agenda. So temper our enthusiasm for legal advice, leaning on that sentence.
This is on the agenda.
It is tonight, but I'm asking why it's in the in executive session when legally it's an open meetings discussion.
We will get that answer in just a few minutes. Ladies and gentlemen, it is now,
But there is a motion on the floor, sir.
there was not a second.
I
So
didn't hear the
your
call
motion-
for the
So your
second.
motion failed.
Fair enough, as long as the public knows. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is now 6:54, and we are going to close the regular session and go into executive session.